This is Hammett.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast. If you give $5 a month, you get ad-free episodes. Mm-hmm. Hello.
Hi.
You have a podcast thing to plug.
I do. So I talked last week about my friend Tyler Meesum's new podcast, Was I in a Cult? With Liz Ialuzzi. And I listened to it. Last week was our anniversary. So on our drive, we went out. So we went out to dinner downtown. And on our drive home, we listened to his podcast. And it's so funny and fun. And like, and I think if you like this show, you'd like that one, that it's like a serious topics, but doesn't take itself too seriously. So I was texting Tyler. And Tyler Meesum, you may know if you've seen An Honest Liar or Murder Among the Mormons or I Want My MTV. This is his next project. And I texted him, I was like, oh my God, it's so great. He's like, are you sure? Because we've been getting really mean reviews. And so I
join the club.
I checked the reviews and it was all like, oh, the woman is too much. She laughs too loud, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, Tyler, I'm sorry. It's not they don't like your show. They don't like women. So anyway, I would recommend
Welcome
it.
To podcasting.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, bud, you'll get used to it. Nobody likes any. He was like, I've always gotten such good reviews on my documentaries. I was like, welcome to podcasting, my dude. Fucking people hated cereal and it won 14 Peabodys. Like... Anyway, so give it a try. Give it a listen. It's called Was I in a Cult on all of your podcatchers.
Very cool. I want to start with this because it's Kent Hovind, the creationist who lives in Alabama. Mm-hmm. We mentioned a couple weeks ago that Kent Hovind, who was in jail for a long time for tax fraud.
Oh.
And now he just does his weekly, not multi-weekly show where he's promoting creationism, which, whatever, you do your thing, man. But he also has the low-budget Creation Museum.
Oh, yes.
Like, made of trailer parks and, like, a pond that a kid drowned in once.
Yes, I remember that.
That's not a knock on trailer parks. That's a knock on you have no money, but you think you're the Creation Museum.
Yeah.
So anyway... He does that now. And we mentioned him a couple weeks ago because he had this girlfriend whom he called his wife, but they never filed for it. So it's like, legally speaking, you're not his wife, but he's like, but she is spiritually. And it's like, that's not a thing in the real world. Anyway, then he abused her and like he recorded it as it was happening because he thought it made him look good.
I remember this asshole.
And we mentioned it because there were that woman filed for an order of protection against him. Mm-hmm. Anyway, all of that happened a while ago, and we knew he was arrested on charges of domestic violence because the affidavit filed in July, but we found out about it last month, said he had thrown that woman to the ground. And he paid a $1,000 bond, and he was back to business as usual. Well, and by the way, the day after I think he got out on bond, he did his daily vlog or whatever, and he urged everyone to remember, you're always innocent until proven guilty. And when you're proven guilty, you're guilty, which is when you go to jail, like he did. Well, yes. He has now been found guilty. This week, we found out that he was punished. He was found guilty of domestic violence, and I want to tell you all these punishments levied against this guy. Oh, geez, Louise! I thought he was still trying to do like a tax thing of like, I'm out, and like you're still innocent. But he's talking about his other crime that he committed, not the one he'd already served time for. There is another lawsuit that has been kicked out of the courts that he says he's going to appeal, but that involved a $500 million lawsuit against the government for like, you took me in jail for tax fraud, and that I lost $500 million of income. And it's like, no, you didn't. And the government responded, yes, we know. That was the point. You were being punished for committing a crime. Anyway. I'm glad you understand. Right. And the judge is like, you've got to be shitting me. Tossed it out. And he's like, we're going to appeal. No, $500 million, eh? $500 million. Anyway. So here's what the judge says this week. I should break these microphones and then sue the microphone manufacturer and be like, I could have made billions using these microphones, but your shoddy equipment is the reason I'm not a billionaire. Damn you, microphones. We could have been Joe Rogan. Yeah. Here's the punishment against Too much hair. Boom!
Boom!
Ouch.
Ball jokes are nothing. That was low-hanging fruit, Jessica.
He was sentenced to a year in jail, but the judge said, you do 30 days and we'll call it even. And he has like 3 more weeks to show up.
Sure.
So he's going to spend 30 days in jail. He's also placed on a 1-year unsupervised probation, meaning after he does 30 days in jail, he's as good as free. He has to pay a $500 fine, court costs, whatever they are, a $100 bail bond fee, and over $2,000 to cover his girlfriend's medical expenses for beating her. He's forbidden from coming 500 feet within of her and having any contact with her. He has to surrender all his firearms to the sheriff's office.
I'm sorry, in Alabama?
In Alabama, that's how bad it is.
There's a crime you can commit in Alabama that gets your guns taken away?
I know.
I thought we'd seen all of the crimes.
They came for his guns. And the weird thing is, so I'm watching his first show after they announced this verdict, and he doesn't say anything about it. But last night I was watching again, because this is what I do with my time.
Sure.
And he's obviously just like, there's 2 sides to every story. Let me tell you mine. I got an email from someone that said, Satan's out, I don't know, everyone's satanic enemies are out to get you or something.
They are. We are. I'm sorry, they.
Yeah.
Not we.
But anyway, he's out, or he will be going to jail for 30 days. The headline is Kent Hovind is going to jail for domestic abuse for 30 days. That's the takeaway here. And again, why does this matter? Why does his personal life situation matter? Because his whole shtick is if you accept the Bible, then you've got to be a creationist. And why should you accept the Bible and be a creationist? Because it makes you a better moral person, which obviously everything in his life suggests that following the Bible the way he does not make you a better, more moral person. The question I have is, he does have followers. He has a little cult-ish thing going on in Alabama. We've joked about Matt Powell, another creationist who's younger, who basically copies everything he does. Hovind does. And they showed up on their daily show together wearing the same weird Hawaiian shirt too, which was weird
lying,
and cultish.
Really?
And I'm
Hawaiian shirts?
You've got to be kidding me, Matt.
You know
you're
what?
dressing like him?
I think Hawaiian shirts have been co-opted by
white people.
Okay. Touche. Yes, we co-opted Hawaiian shirts, I would say.
Co-opted Hawaii.
Listen, I'm not here to apologize on behalf of all white people. Again, I think we've already done this. But I feel like I've heard it's like a Proud Boys thing.
Really?
Yeah, let me look into it.
As you're looking at that, my question now is for those followers of Kent Hovind, like Powell, do any of them care about this domestic violence now guilty verdict? Will any of them be like, maybe I shouldn't spend all my time with this dude? Which I could have told you after the tax fraud charges, but also they're still doing it. I'm not anticipating anything to change. But, you would like to think, okay, come on, this isn't even a biblical difference of opinion. This guy's going to jail because he beat up a woman who he was dating at the time. Isn't that enough for some of you family values people to say, maybe this isn't the guy I want to follow? And I have no confidence they're going to do that. I just wish one of these things would sink in and they would live up to their own stated values, but they won't.
So apparently the Boogaloo Boys wear Hawaiian shirts.
Oh, really?
This is according to the Wall Street Journal. So this is honest to God reporting from June 8th, 2020. The term Boogaloo comes from the 1984 film Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. Listen,
I refuse to listen to the rest of this
story. They do anything unironically? At one point, the riff Civil War II Electric Boogaloo started being bandied about in far-right channels. God, they're such fucking nerds. Jesus Christ. And I am somebody who has spent 6 of the last 24 hours playing Oregon Trail on my iPad, and I think these guys are nerds.
That's a good segue into this next story because it involves white people being bad.
Great.
There is a
hashtag the theme of our podcast.
There's a Christian apologist whose name is Josh McDowell. He's one of the... Okay, I'll give you my little personal history here. When I started exploring godlessness, atheism, whatever. I didn't know the word, but I knew the idea at the time. One of the things that happens back in the day when there's no internet really
And this
to
would
explore,
have been 05-ish?
yeah, 1805, whatever old I am now. One of the things that happens is people will be like, well, you should read this book by a Christian apologist because they're tackling the questions that atheists have.
Even though you're leaving Jainism and not like
it doesn't
mainstream
matter.
Christianity?
No one knows what that is, so they're like, Christianity is close enough. It's God, so read this, you'll come closer.
Perfect.
But they, of course, they give like, here's the Lee Strobel book, The Case for Christ, or one of the variations of that. And Josh McDowell's books were on that list of things I always seem to have access to, whether it was at college or high school, because people would just be like, you may want to read this. This will convince you. Because those were like, not just best-selling books, but they were like, where else were you going to go to find those answers at the time?
Sure,
Because you
there's
didn't
no
have,
YouTube.
There's no all the resources available, right? And so, again, he's one of these guys whose entire career is built on, I have explored the questions that atheists have, and I can answer them, and the answer is Christianity, all that sort of stuff. So this guy is, to me, not a nobody. He's well known in these circles. I think, according to his Twitter bio, he's written like 150 books. I'm sure at least like 2 or 3 of them.
I've been working on a novel
bestsellers.
for 2 years. I feel like an idiot.
I feel like a lot of these pastors, they're like, I gave a sermon once. I'm going to turn it into a book, get a Christian publisher to shit it out there. And
just publish like people's tweets.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's
pretty
a
much.
book.
Yeah, it's a
Buy
book.
it.
And because they already have their fan base, it's like, look, my latest gift from God.
Well, and also, I feel like those kinds of gifts are really aimed for like the aunt you don't know that well, and she's like, I know so and so is into this one thing, so I'm going to buy a book of their tweets or whatever.
Right.
Oh.
So he's 81 now, and he was speaking last weekend at the American Association of Christian Counselors World Conference in Florida. All right, that's a group,
World Conference,
whatever.
and they picked Florida. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool as usual.
It's a conservative group with
Let's go to
fully
Vienna.
expected beliefs about what counselors ought to be doing, like gay conversion torture is part of their thing. You know what I mean?
Do they have like a certification process? That's something I've always wondered.
A lot of these Christian groups have their own. It's
like their internal.
Yeah, like there are Christian college accreditation groups too.
It's
It's like, yes, we're accredited by this organization. It's like they don't count though; they make up their own rules. Anyway,
Okay.
He's speaking to them, so he's speaking to a group of Christian counselors, or to put that another way, this Christian with a prominent platform of his own is speaking to a bunch of Christians whose jobs require them to have influence over other people.
Sure.
And so his speech was about addressing the biggest issues that Christian counselors are going to be facing in the future. Seems appropriate for them. And he had a list of 6 things they needed to, be acquainted with, because you're going to have to deal with this.
Do you have any examples of like, oh, good.
3 of them on the list are critical race theory, social justice, and pornography.
These are a few of my favorite things.
So, like, the other 3 were whatever. I don't care about the rest of them.
I want to know what the other 3 were.
I forgot what they were. There was a list, but it was just like, okay, 3 of them are just right-wing sort of things, but these 3...
critical race theory, social justice, and pornography.
Yeah, like, how do we deal with young people having access to adult content, which might be a thing to discuss among counselors, but also I don't trust this guy to be the guy discussing them. But anyway, I bring this up because during the part of his speech where he's talking about what he thinks critical race theory is, I'm just going to quote what he said.
Oh, God.
Here's what I'll give him the benefit of the doubt first. Here's what he's trying to say. We do have to address race because racism is real.
Oh, it's not. I don't see race.
It wasn't an I don't see race. He was saying, look, people of color don't have the same opportunities that a lot of us who are white, and you can bet that room was pretty white. He's like, they don't have the same opportunities we do, and we need to be acknowledge that. That's the best case situation of what he was trying to say. Let me tell you what he actually said.
All right.
Okay. It's not just the equal opportunity. I don't believe everyone says, well, blacks, white, everyone have an equal opportunity to make it in America. No, they don't, folks.
Okay.
I do not believe blacks, African Americans, and many other minorities have equal opportunity. Why?
Why?
Most of them grew up in families where there's not a big emphasis on education.
Okay.
Security. You can do anything you want. You can change the world. If you work hard, you'll make it. He's basically saying these families didn't grow up learning education is good. You know, they're black families. Then he goes on. So many African Americans don't have those privileges like I was brought up in.
Okay. ...
The way I was raised, I had advantages in life ingrained in me. You can do it. Get your education. Get a job. Change the world.
Oh, okay.
Implying...
So we were walking a tightrope of how race affects your chances of success in life. Mm-hmm. And he just really plunged into the alligators of black people don't care about reading.
Yep. That's where he's going with that. So he's like, I was raised right, but in those families, you know, they are not taught that education is good, that security matters, that they should get a job, that they could change the world. It's like, dude, they don't necessarily have the same opportunities to achieve that because of the situation they're in, because of a lot of other issues.
Well, and I think there's such an oversimplification of this sort of, we'll say his thing is black people don't care about education or whatever, right? Like that seems to be his implication there. And that is, obviously I'm reducing what he said, but it's so reductive because it's frequently like there is a problem with parents not being as involved in their kids' schoolwork in like inner cities. However, it's not a problem of people don't care. It's a problem of they have multiple jobs or don't work a first shift job. So they're not around when their kid is home. Like, to reduce
which goes back to they don't have the same situations. They're not having the same opportunities,
same resources.
So like again, if I give him the benefit of the doubt here, I do understand what he wanted to say. I also know that this wasn't a slip up. He said, you know, they grow up and they don't care about education like we do in this room over here, which that's not a slip up. You genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some might say, not necessarily me, but the fact that he is so ham-fisted in trying to discuss race is a good reason maybe we should teach critical race theory.
Yes, which is a very, if you're making
Did I step on your punchline?
No, you didn't. But yes, that is a big part of this. Yeah. Josh McDowell is literally showing why we need to discuss race, or as conservatives have basically now called it, critical race theory, which is not accurate. But this is why we do need to discuss racism and structural racism and all this stuff, because too many people don't understand where the issues are coming from. He thinks race is the reason, or has something to do. It's like, it's the culture. It's not. It's a bigger issue. And by the way, the people in that room, conservative white evangelicals, are part of the reason we can't even deal with those issues.
Because they won't increase social services funding because they all vote conservative because fuck poor people, I guess.
Right. And so when that happened last weekend, the only reason we know about it is because like one dude in the crowd is like, did he just say what I think he said? I think he did. And
I'm surprised that raised flags with anybody in that room.
Like one person, though, and that's it. And eventually, reporters got a hold of the speech, like an audio copy of the speech. And we got the quotation. We know what he said. And it was pretty close to what the dude's like, I think he just said this. And it's like, you're pretty on point. That is what he said.
Oof.
And within like a day or so, Josh McDowell issued a statement. It's a long statement, but here's the relevant part of it. Okay. My statement, as quoted, does not reflect my own beliefs. ...
Okay, whatever. Who fucking cares? Keep going.
When I said that most minorities grew up in families where there is not a big emphasis on education and security, I made a generalized statement that does not reflect reality. I apologize and reiterate my Christian love for all races, nationalities, and people groups. All right, whatever. Not great prose, but okay, fine. It doesn't reflect reality. That's true. It doesn't, but also... that's kind of the end of that for him.
Yeah.
Here's what he doesn't say. He doesn't say, I'm totally unaware of structural racism. He doesn't explain what he got wrong or why he said the things he did say. We heard it. Or the fact that the broader point he was trying to make doesn't make any sense without his implication that, people of color don't care about education like I do. Like, his whole speech is torn down if he's saying, that's not what I meant to say. I know that's not true. Well, then what the hell were you talking about for an hour as, like, the keynote speaker?
What was his thesis? Like, what point was he trying to get to? Because people who grow up in black people grow up in homes where they don't care about education, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So what? Like, what is his... Is he just saying, like, hey, here's some shit I'm going to talk about a race of people who's not represented here? Like,
I don't know where he's going
point?
with it. I think his argument is to these Christian counselors, you need to fight critical race theory because they're trying to make the world racist, and racism isn't the problem we need to address. It is, we need to get everybody to value education like those of us in this room do.
Oh, I see.
It's like,
okay.
Education, like a desire to get educated, isn't the issue that you need to be addressing here. Because it's not that people don't care about it.
Right.
And so that was the issue. Like, pretending that critical race theory, quote unquote, is the problem misses the point. I could have told you that before he spoke.
Of course.
And then, of course, whatever he said didn't help the situation. Pretending social justice and fighting for it is the problem with our society instead of the injustice people are trying to address.
Even though he can identify it. He can identify the fact that, like, there's a problem with kids not getting the education they need.
Yeah.
And just, like, whiffs so hard on what the solution could be. It's fucking wild. And also, I think there's a greater problem here. And, like, I'm not going to try to be, like, a white person explaining the problem with, like, racists. Obviously, nobody needs my help with that. But to me, a huge problem in this sort of subversion of the discussion regarding, like, inequality when it comes to race, this pathological need that conservatives have to deny that race has any factor on anything is so part and parcel with how they view the world. And therefore, when black people are getting shot in the street, in their head, they're saying, oh, I'm just seeing people get shot in the street. It's not my fault that it's a crime problem. All they have to do is this. Or
if they just listened to the cops, this would never happen.
Exactly. Or because they refuse to understand that, like, the black community's relationship with the police is not the same as the Naperville cops who, like, come by because somebody stole a bottle of wine out of your fridge or whatever. That's a real thing that happened to my mom when I was little. That was my first interaction with the police. True story. Yes, I am white. But also, like, when you go on to the bigger things like the Native kids who were killed en masse in orphanages, if you're not allowing yourself to say, this is a problem with how white people are treating the Native populations of America and of North America, like, if you don't see that, you're missing such a big piece of the pie of what is going on and how to fix it. And this is it. Like, we just saw it here of it's not a race problem, it's an education problem. But you can't separate those two things. You can't separate race and poverty. You just can't, because we live in the United States and people of color are much more likely to be homeless or whatever. Whatever. I'm sorry.
So he issued that statement. And then guess what? The pushback didn't start because now people heard the comments. And again, a lot of Christians,
so the pushback didn't start until he apologized?
Once people started hearing the clip of what he said, like, that's why he issued the statement. He's like, why are people, like, saying mean things about me online?
Yeah.
Oh, I should address that.
Yeah.
And then he did. And then it's like, dude, you didn't address any of the problems with everything you said because we saw what your speech was about.
Right.
And we saw that you were trying to attack, quote unquote, critical race theory.
So brave.
Which, like, you still don't get it, dude. And so days later, so now we're at middle of this week, he issued another statement.
Oh.
This is where it gets fun.
Sorry, my apology was so shitty.
That's not what he said.
Uh-oh.
Here's what he wrote. It breaks my heart. I'm skipping around, but it breaks my heart to know what deep pain I have caused. It has become clear to me, along with Cru leadership, because his ministry is affiliated with Campus Crusade for Christ, aka Cru. He's like, it's become clear to me, along with Cru leadership, that I need to step back from my ministry and speaking engagements to enter a season of listening and addressing the growth areas that I have become aware of through this. ... I hope to personally grow and better understand how I can help contribute to the reconciliation and unity that God desires for all of us. During the season, Josh McDowell Ministry will continue with its mission with a different CEO leading all daily efforts. So he's stepping away from his ministry to listen to listen. That's what he says. And that's it. So he's stepping back from public engagements as a result. So
I'm waiting for the catch.
Here's the catch. Like, for me, it's okay, fine. That's good. You should be stepping away for a while. But also, I don't think he understands yet any reason why anyone's mad. Because here's what I didn't hear in that statement. He doesn't say what he would have said differently. He doesn't address the actual root of racial disparities and the role white evangelicals like him play in making all of that worse.
Sure.
He doesn't acknowledge the existence of structural racism. And I believe in that speech, he kind of just dismisses that because that's a conservative thing. Structural racism isn't a thing. Some people are bad, but like, whatever, arrest the bad cop who shot a black person, and now we've solved the problem. It's
except for when we don't arrest those cops.
Yeah,
ever.
That too. He doesn't admit that teaching critical race theory and pushing for social justice as defined by conservative outlets are nothing more than scare tactics to avoid real conversations about racism and privilege and things like that. Doesn't admit that. He doesn't say how he plans to grow. He said, I'm going to listen. To who? You're going to grow? Oh, what are you going to read? Who do you think you might listen to? I know it's early. I'm not asking for a detailed outline of what he's going to do. But like, you can't just say, I'm going to step back and listen to people without eventually telling us, because if he wants to ever step back into public life, he ought to follow up on that and say, here's what I've changed about my beliefs. Here's who I've read. Here's who I've listened to. And like, he could have done that. He's an evangelical who is well known, which means there's no shortage of people who could talk to him about this who are an email away.
Right.
And again, I want to point out all of the backlash against the stuff he said is not coming from atheists, non-Christians. A lot of it's coming from younger Christians who are just like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why are you saying this stuff? And so and by the way, he also didn't say that Campus Crusade for Christ will change how it handles issues of race because the same issue he got in trouble for, Campus Crusade for Christ has been struggling with forever. A bunch of people who worked with their ministry on college campuses have left the organization because they just said there's too much racism here.
Sure.
And so like the entire group he's working with is part of the problem. So there's a lot left unsaid. I'm glad he stepped down and stepping away. Let's hope he sticks to it because a lot of these people are just waiting for the comeback tour. But if he ever does come back, and I know he's older, but if he ever does come back, he owes it to people, I think, using the platform that he has to say, this is what I screwed up.
Right.
And here's how I got better. And by the way, white evangelicals, who I regularly preach to, here's what you should do about it, because I was wrong. I want to hear that.
Sure.
I'm not expecting to hear that just yet. But if he ever wants to come back, right now he's just the racist Christian apologist who accidentally said what he actually believes and got caught for it.
Yeah. Not even caught, got called out. Like, it's not like he wasn't doing it in secret. Yeah, listen, I feel like we often hit this crossroad, you and I, that I'm like, you know what, I am going to allow myself to be optimistic and hope that this guy goes home and watches like the 13th or When They See Us or just like whatever Ava DuVernay has put out lately to make us understand the plight of like the American black person. Like, watch 2 of those, read a couple books. It's a long weekend is what you need. I don't know how long you need, but anyway, like what you need to come back. I completely agree. I am willing to leave the door open for this guy to come back and say, hey, listen, I had some conversations, and those conversations weren't with Ben Carson, who's like, whatever, like racism isn't real. Look at me. I'm a neurosurgeon and also a functioning idiot. Like if he comes back and genuinely does learn something and does positive.
There are a lot of prominent black Christians in evangelical circles who have been trying to make their voice heard on these issues. And their complaint has been the same thing, which is they're not listening to what my people are saying.
Didn't like a whole black caucus like leave the Southern Baptists or something like that?
Yeah, a lot of black people have left the Southern Baptist Church. Yeah. A lot of them left Liberty University, by the way, separately, but for a very similar reason where they're just like, these white evangelicals are just really racist.
Well,
and we can't defend the stuff they're doing in the name of Jesus. We can't be here. Like, it's one thing to recruit like athletes, but like a lot of those people go to those schools for the scholarship because they get to play Division I sports. And then they're like,
Liberty University's Division I?
I mean, they're playing in the NCAA tournament. They're,
You know, I said that as if I know what the fuck Division I is or care.
But they were just saying, like, the way they teach these issues. I mean, they talk about these issues in the classroom, and they're like, no, that's just wrong. It's not just biblically wrong. Like, you're wrong on every level here. But if no one's listening to them...
Right.
Or you're using them as the diversity hire to recruit other black people to come to the school. They're like, I can't tell other black people they should come to this campus. I think someone said that. He's like, I just can't do it with all sincerity. Even though I'm Christian and a fundamentalist Christian, I cannot tell them in good conscience, you should come to this school. It'll be good for you.
Right.
So they left too. I mean, it's a general problem with like the world, but it's also very much a problem in like conservative Christianity.
Sure.
And Josh McDowell's just... he's been, again, you don't give a speech like this when you've never given it before to a crowd like this, which means, I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but like, I'm guessing he said all this stuff to different groups of people in different contexts, but it's the same thing, and no one's called him out on it before. So.
Oh boy, anyway. I just watched the LuLaRoe documentary. And
I did too. I don't know why I watched LuLaRoe.
It was good, right?
No, I hate it. It was...
You hated the doc?
I hated the documentary, but it was interesting. I'm like, I feel like I've seen versions of this documentary everywhere, but it was amusing to watch the disillusionment of people who bought into the MLM lie.
Oh, yeah.
And then watching them figure out, I'm being played.
Yeah, that's sort of the interesting thing about like cult-like documentaries. I will say I loved that they had the two owners on there.
Yes.
Who they like the owners of LuLaRoe, which is a like multi-level marketing pyramid scheme. I liked the doc a lot. I thought it was entertaining.
There was a black woman in there who said there was a cruise. Like if you sell enough, you get invited to the cruise.
Hero of that documentary.
She said, I was in public and I laughed out loud in public. She's like, I'm not going on a cruise with a bunch of white people, and I laughed out loud. The way she said it was so blunt.
And she just said it in a way of like, I'm going to try not to say, no, it's white people. It's too many white people on a boat. Absolutely not. But I love when they get the villain, like they interview the villain for documentaries, because the thing with serial killers, they always think they're smarter than everybody. And you said it, you see it, Ted Bundy did it all the time. You see the Fire Island guy, if he's like, I can talk my way around these idiots. And then they're like, why did you do this? And he's like, how come nobody's coming to save me? I'm a white man. Nobody's allowed to ask me hard questions. Anyway, all that's to say is the woman reminds me of so many...
Who started the company.
Who started the company reminds me of so many bosses I've had that is just like, she's like sickeningly nice, but like does not give a shit about you in reality. And like, they do the whole thing of like, what? It's not a pyramid scheme. We're just selling people things so they can sell other people things. That's not what a pyramid scheme is. Anyway, I'm going to
totally going on a tangent after you're done with the sentence.
I just want to pitch an idea of like an MLM, but it's a black guy at Liberty University. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to recruit 3 other black kids. And then when they start recruiting, and then
take over the school.
And then I will be, but I will be by the end of this, I will be the president of Liberty University. And then there's just a bunch of like miserable black students. Like, I thought I was going to get an education here. Anyway, that's my pitch for satire. Go ahead.
The next Netflix documentary.
Yeah, exactly. What were you going to say about your tangent?
I have now, I never binge watch stuff, or I rarely binge watch stuff, but I did do I watched that straight through. But I have now moved on to Squid Game. And
Is it good?
It's messing with my mind, and I love it.
Really? It's Korean,
I can't say anything, but it took me 20 minutes to get into it, the first episode. Yeah, subtitles and everything. And it was so worth it. Because it's so demented.
Good.
Oh, it's so fun.
Oh, I'm so deep in spooky season.
I won't say more because I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but listen... Go watch it. Then hit me up. Let's talk.
Okay, I'll watch it tonight, probably.
My family will never watch it because it's not their thing.
Well, your child can't read yet, so like that's probably his
and also,
main barrier to entry.
Everything else about the show is totally inappropriate for them, and it's glorious.
What's the genre? Is it like horror? Is it action? You can't say.
There is death involved.
Dope.
very gruesome, graphic deaths.
Oh, that's great.
It's Saw, but with subtitles. Let's do that.
Oh, love that.
Yes. Anyway,
I'm really excited. Mike Flanagan, who did Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor, just came out today as we record with a new... Did you see either of those?
No.
Oh, they're amazing. We're in the middle of our annual rewatch of Hill House. But he just came out with a new horror series, miniseries, that is about the church.
Oh.
It's got like a religious bent. It's called... Holy Ground something. I'll look it up.
While you were doing that, I'm moving on to this other story. We have talked about a company called Mischief, MSCHF, Mischief.
We have?
Mischief without the vowels, because they are the people who came out a while back with Jesus shoes, which were special Nikes that they basically retooled and were like, we put some Christian paraphernalia here. We included in the soles of the
Midnight
shoes.
Mass.
Midnight Mass is the show.
And apparently there's animal death.
Oh,
trigger warning.
Okay, yeah, there you go. The Jesus shoes had like holy water in the soles.
Cool.
Yeah, it was very fancy. And then they jacked up the price and they're like, we're selling like a handful of these. And they sold out quickly. And then they came out with Satan shoes with the help of Lil Nas X.
I was going to say Lil Nas X.
And those were like a flip side of that. Like they took Nikes, they refurbished them and made them satanic. And it was hilarious. And I assume they cost $666. No, I'm sorry, $3,000 a pair, but they came with a steel crucifix.
Oh, a steel crucifix,
no,
you say?
I'm sorry. I'm totally wrong. There were 666 pairs of the Satan shoes available. They were $1,018 each. They contained
1,018. That's
I think it was a reference
number.
to a Bible verse. There was a drop of human blood mixed in them. Anyway, that's this company. They do random shit each month. If you have their app, they're like, we just came out with something new. You're going to enjoy it.
What is it?
And it's usually something you can only get until it's sold out.
Sure.
And it's really fast, and they never do the same thing twice. So it's always something random. So their latest thing last week just came out. They said, we've decided to go up against conservative Christians again because we enjoy making them mad because it's good publicity. That's me talking for them, not them. But what they said is, Chick-fil-A is anti-gay as a company. Their owners, at the very least, donate money to anti-gay causes because they're conservative Christians. In the past, as a company, they gave to groups opposing LGBTQ rights. And if you know nothing else about Chick-fil-A, they're closed on Sundays.
Yes.
That is a mandate from the top. Doesn't matter if they're in an airport. They are closed on Sundays.
Or in, famously, a football stadium.
Yes, that's right.
Which I remember laughing for about 25 minutes when I heard about that.
That is correct.
So stupid.
So, Mischief this week said, we've created a website that, I don't know if it'll still be up and running by the time people hear this episode, but it may be. People can order Chick-fil-A sandwiches through their new website for $6.66.
Odds.
And they can pick it up from select special locations on Sunday because this is their way of sticking it to Chick-fil-A. They said on their promotional materials, this is called Mischief Sunday Service. They're real Chick-fil-A sandwiches acquired from Chick-fil-A locations. They said, let's take advantage... Oh, I'm sorry. Let me read from their press release because it was amusing. Certain American values go hand in hand. For example, conservative Christianity pairs perfectly with a corresponding devout faith in the free market. That being the case... I'm sorry, is this... I think this is from their press release. That being the case, fuck it. Let's take advantage of the obvious hole in the market left by notoriously Christian restaurant chain Chick-fil-A's Sabbatarianism. The market finds a way. And in this case, it's the road to hell. Hail Satan and eat more chicken on the holy days. I can't remember if that was an article about it or their article, but it could have been the same thing. Basically, here's how this works. They buy the sandwiches on a Saturday, they keep them warm overnight, and they have a professional chef who puts finishing touches on them on Sunday before you pick them up. Therefore, you can get Chick-fil-A on a Sunday.
There's like 14 reasons I wouldn't do this.
I think...
not the least of which is one-day-old fast food is not great.
They're making it very clear, like, I know it's one day old. Yeah. We promise it'll still be good. But besides that, here's what I don't like about it. If their goal is to stick it to Chick-fil-A and legally they've made enough changes, like, I assume their lawyers have taken care of all this stuff. Assuming it's all that way on the up and up, You're still giving money to Chick-fil-A, though.
That was my immediate problem.
You're still giving them money, but you're doing it on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And then doing whatever it is you do with the sandwiches. So if the goal of anyone buying this is, I am going to stick it to Chick-fil-A, you're not.
Yeah.
They got your money already. So I don't get the purpose. I don't get what the point of this is.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Like, if you want to go after the history of bigotry and pointing out the hypocrisy and the bad causes, I'm all for it. But I don't this is one of those things where the website is amusing, but if your goal is you think you're making Chick-fil-A feel bad, I promise you they don't care.
I mean, listen, as anybody who has been paying attention or who listens to Mabim Bam, we're in the middle of the chicken wars right now. The chicken sandwich wars. Every restaurant is putting out their new chicken sandwich to compete with Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is garbage. Don't buy it, even ironically. Instead, make your own sandwich, or the McDonald's one is really quite good. The spicy sauce is great.
I have a fun one for you. This is just for my amusement. It's not a news story, but I don't care. Lori Alexander, the transformed wife. She's the fundamentalist Christian grandma.
This bitch.
Yes.
I hate this woman.
She put out a video, not just her blog this time. She put out a video, and here's again. I'll play this game. Here's the best case version of what she's saying.
Sure.
You're not always, when you save yourself for marriage, and you should. Listen, things are not going to be rosy at first, but it'll get better. I stuck with my husband despite any obstacles we had to overcome, and I'm glad I did it. We've been married for 41 years. That's the best case version of what she's saying. Here's what she actually said. I was not passionately in love with my husband when I married him. In fact, I didn't really have much feelings of love towards him. And this concerned me greatly.
Sure. ...
A lot of my problem in marrying my husband, and in the first 20 years of my marriage, were those critical negative thoughts and judging him, instead of showing him mercy as God wanted me to do.
20 years? Okay.
And basically she says, she stayed married for the sake of the kids, and she's glad she did. It worked out. And that's kind of the entire video. That's how the whole thing goes. And I think my favorite line in the entire thing is she says, you don't have to be madly in love with someone in order to marry them, because that kind of passion is, and I'm quoting, kind of a Hollywood thing anyway.
Oh, honey. Oh, this poor woman has never had an orgasm, has she?
No. And this is the same woman who in a different video once said, listen, ladies, your husband needs sex. I'm paraphrasing. Your husband needs sex. Give it to him because, and I quote, how long does it take?
I remember this.
Yes, we discussed this at length.
God. Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Like,
oh
I
boy.
don't...
20 years.
I
She
have
was miserable.
no opinion on her marriage. I wouldn't dare to criticize or offer my thoughts on her relationship. It's none of my business. What bothers me is this idea that she's giving advice to other people saying, here's how you should do it. I know. You know what? You don't have to love him. Is he a man of God? Is he going to provide for you? Check, check. We're good. Shut the hell up. Get married. You'll be happy. Go be a housewife. We're set now. It's the same vibe as the younger Girl Defined videos, where it's like two girls in their 20s, 30s who save themselves until marriage, and now they think of themselves, or at least it comes across that way, as we know, like, let us give you sex advice. Let us give you relationship advice. But you didn't date. Right. You didn't have sex. Like, I don't want to get advice from you on these things. And I'm really upset that young girls are getting advice from you on these things. Same thing with Lori. Like, I don't care about her situation. I am disturbed that a lot of people in that circle may take her seriously.
Oh, boy. So, I just listened to an episode of Planet Money recently that was about why there aren't more women CEOs. And there was a really interesting piece that was all about how 5-10 years ago, the rate of women in the workforce was growing and continuing to grow. And they're like, we don't see this stopping for any reason. And then the pandemic hit, and now the women in the workforce has dropped precipitously. Also, they found this thing of women tend to start small businesses at about the same rate as men, but for whatever reason, either don't get venture capital funding or choose not to do it because the only way they can do it is hand over their idea and their business to a rich man who has the money to do it. And so when the business grows, a man ends up taking over for that reason. And one of the many reasons women tend to not pursue these high-powered careers is that childcare falls to them disproportionately. And these kinds of things, these things that we hear from women in this world of, it's okay if you don't like your husband. It is okay if he doesn't do anything to help you or make you feel good. It's fine. You will learn to love him and you will learn to love this life. And this is your responsibility. This kind of messaging not only tells women that it's okay to settle down with somebody they're not that into, but it also
because he's religious,
but it tells men, I don't have to do anything to keep this woman around. Therefore, I am not going to clean up after myself. I'm not going to do the laundry. I'm not going to take equal care of my kids. And so it just keeps going forever and ever of women are letting men get away with whatever they want in their home. And therefore, men don't think they need to try, and women don't have the opportunity to leave the house and try something new if they want to. Anyway, it's all of a piece. It's all the same shit. Like
purity culture, abstinence culture. It's all the same thing. Yep.
Was that a fair comparison to make, or was I just wanting to talk about Planet Money so people think I'm smart?
No, that works too.
Okay, cool.
Let's talk about something closer to our neck of the woods. There is a Catholic school, Benet Academy.
Yes.
Private Catholic school. I think it's just a high school. I don't know if it's K-12. Okay, so just a high school. Basically, what they did is they were, it's known as a good school academically, and they have competitive athletic programs too. So they recently hired one of their own graduates, I believe.
I didn't realize she was a graduate.
But basically, they hired her as the head girls lacrosse coach, which is one of those, every school has one of those, athletic head coach. Does she have experience? Yes, she does, because she was in Pennsylvania before this, led a team to 2 state championships. She knows what she's doing. No one's questioning the credentials on this. So they interviewed her. They hired her months and months ago. Whatever job she had, she quit it. She said, I'm moving back here because I'm going to be their head coach. Good for her. Her name is Amanda Camus. Camus. Kammes. But anyway, she already met with the students. They love her. She's excited to work with them. They're excited to work with her. Everything is great. After they hired her, they gave her the paperwork to sign. And one of the questions on the paperwork is, what's your emergency contact? She lists her wife. And then the Catholic school's like, oh. So then they rescinded their job offer because, of course, you work at a Catholic school, you can't be gay married. And what happened this week is that once people found out what happened, because this woman's not going to be their coach anymore, so word gets out, there is a major outcry, not just from students, not just the athletes who are like, why the hell did you get rid of a really good coach?
Yeah.
But from other students who are like, what the hell's wrong with this? Our school is Catholic, sure, but we're not like those other Catholic schools, which, oh, you poor thing. Also from parents who are like, but she's really good. She's going to help our kids. And from alums, lots of alums who are like, you've got to, don't put us in the news for being the bad Catholic schools. Just fury. And then it didn't help that as the school's dealing with, I guess kids were planning to protest on Monday. Some people stationed outside the school with signs to protest, but also students were going to come to school wearing rainbow clothing as a way of a protest. The head of school, his name is Stephen Marth, he issued a statement to that's got sent out to everybody where he said, rainbows are confusing and ambiguous and therefore lead to a lack of understanding or even division. He also said the colors represented something complex and sophisticated.
So wait, was he trying to ban rainbow stuff, or
no,
was
I
he
think
just...
he's trying to say, I don't think these kids understand what they're doing. And it's like, no, buddy, they totally understand. They're just not playing along with your Catholic bigotry.
I wish he had been like, yes, they're all wearing the rainbow in honor of the end of the Noah's Ark story.
Right, a very Ken Ham mentality.
It.
Yeah. There was a petition on change.org signed by more than 3,400 Benet-linked community members, where here's their argument. By rejecting a talented potential staff member on the basis of whom she loves, you have utterly failed to uphold the principles of dignity and charity that you purport to practice as a Christian institution. We are ashamed of your own narrow interpretation of Christian morality. Nice petition. Now, my first reaction, and I know a lot of you listening, the first reaction is, it's a Catholic school. They have their rules. If you don't like it, don't go there. This isn't a legal issue, per se. Like, yeah, they have the right to say, if you're gay married, guess what? You don't get to be a staffer at this school.
I keep saying gay married. It's so,
whatever they would say. Like, again, and the school's argument would be, we have no problem with gay people, but if you're in a gay relationship, for the same reason, like if you're a woman who's had an abortion, you violated Catholic doctrine.
Right.
But if a guy at the school pays for the abortion and no one sees her, they would just not find out. Like, it's very hypocritical. It's very anti-woman, the way these things are actually practiced.
Can I slip in a quick question? So the whole thing with Catholicism in general is that it's okay to be, quote unquote, be gay, but you just can't act on it.
Yeah, you can be celibate and gay.
What? Like, if I am this...
And you cannot be trans.
Oh, well, no, trans people don't exist.
They don't exist in the Catholic Church.
Jesus. But if I'm her, I would just be like... I mean, obviously, she shouldn't be in this position. All of this stuff, this is not on her. But, like, why doesn't anyone say, like, oh, yeah, I'm married to this person, but we're celibate? Fucking prove it wrong.
Because no, because it's the act of marriage that also goes against Catholic teachings, which is why you can't get in a same-sex marriage in a Catholic church.
I live with my girlfriend. We don't have sex.
I mean, yes, she could lie. I mean, that's kind of her options here.
But I just think that would put the Catholic Church in an interesting situation of like, well, we think you are doing these things. Okay, fucking prove it.
Right. I mean, they can't prove it.
You tell me how.
She's admitting she's married to another woman.
Right.
So
and
the
again,
Catholic,
this is not on her.
Right. The Catholic diocese overseeing Benet Academy is like, well, we have no choice. We have to get rid of you because of the gay stuff. And again, I get that students are mad. I get that all of these people are mad, but also, you know what you signed up for. I could have told you, I know you think the school is great, but it's affiliated with the Catholic Church. What do you expect? Do you think the church is a good organization? Because we have decades of evidence that it's totally not whatever you think the Pope is doing. Like, it's a horrible place with horrible beliefs. And by giving Benet Academy money, or any Catholic school money, like, you're supporting that stuff, whether you agree with it or not. And again, more than half of American Catholics practicing, I call myself a Catholic, they support abortion rights to some degree. They support same-sex marriage, but the institution does not. So none of this was surprising. Now, here's the little twist here.
Okay.
This month in North Carolina, a gay teacher who was hired as a drama instructor, like not a core class teacher, but hired by a Catholic school to teach drama. Guess what? He's also married to another man. He's also gay married.
Gay men?
Yeah.
In the theater?
And I know. Shocking. And the school fired him, and he sued, and he alleged sex discrimination, saying, you know, this, if I was married to a woman, or if I were a woman, you would not have fired me, but because I'm a man, you did. And here's...
Oh, interesting. I see what you mean.
So he filed a sex discrimination lawsuit.
So he's not saying you're homophobic.
He's saying you came after me because I'm a man in a way you would not have if I were a woman.
That's sort of an interesting take on the...
It is.
Interesting.
And here's the thing. The judge, putting aside the cleverness of that argument, the judge said this guy isn't teaching... He's not hired to teach Catholicism.
Right.
There are people at the school, at a Catholic school, whose job it is to lead prayer or to do any of the things that involve passing along Catholic doctrine.
Right.
The elective drama coach, not one of them. The girls lacrosse coach, not one of them. And in the case of the drama instructor in North Carolina, the judge sided with him, saying they broke the law by firing you.
Really?
Yeah, which was shocking. And again, the argument there is, yes, a Catholic school has the right to impose its Catholic doctrine, but it's not universal. There is a standing question of whether Catholic schools can get rid of employees for being in a same-sex relationship if they are not in the position of having to teach Catholic doctrine. Like, then you got to go by the laws of the state. And if the state says you can't discriminate for that reason, that also applies to the Catholic school. But it changes depending on where you are. I only bring that up. I'm not going to pretend to be the legal expert here. I only bring that up to say there was an argument to be made by the students, the alums, the people fighting on behalf of this coach, saying she's not here to teach Catholic doctrine. We're not being hypocrites here and saying like, what? The Catholic Church is anti-gay? No, they were saying she's coaching lacrosse.
Right.
There's nothing hypocritical about keeping her on, even as the church is the church. And guess what? This week, the middle of this week, like a day or two after this started making headlines, definitely locally, but even beyond that, the school decided to reverse course. They rehired her. The school, I'm going to read from a news article. The board has heard from members of the Benet community on all sides of the issue over the past several days. The school acknowledged that it had previously rescinded the job offer upon learning that she is in a same-sex marriage, but it added that the board, quote, determined that Miss Camus' background and experience made her the right candidate for the position. So they rehired her, and they said, for now, we hope that this is the first step in healing the Benet community. So ultimately, they rehired her. And, of course, there are some conservative Catholics and right-wing Christian groups who are furious.
Of course.
This isn't true Catholicism.
It's sin.
But it's telling that they caved under pressure because I think they knew if we go through with the thing we think we got to do, we're going to get a lot of bad publicity. We're going to lose a lot of donations. And that's scarier to us than just hiring someone and saying, but she's coaching that thing, so she doesn't have to do religion, so we have a loophole, so we win.
Are you telling me that the Catholic Church changed its mind on a policy because they were afraid they were going to lose money?
Yes,
That's
I know. Shocking.
Wild. Jesus. Cameron Esposito, a comedian, she is a Benet grad. I interviewed her at the beginning of 2020 before the world ended, and we talked a lot about Benet. So we talked a lot about her going to Benet and what it is like being like a young woman and a young baby queer person and hearing about how evil and useless you are and like the sort of damage that does to one's psyche. I would recommend maybe Hemant, you could link to that in the notes. But yeah, it was a great interview, if I do say so myself, and I had a lot of fun and fangirled and made her listen to the first joke I ever told when I was a stand-up. So tune in there.
Well done.
You know what's the irony? Can I tell you the first joke I ever wrote?
Yes.
So what do you take? So I took a stand-up class. It's called FemCom if you're in Chicago. My joke was, and they teach you structured jokes.
You're really building this up.
Okay, so they teach structured jokes. So the first joke they taught is, I like my blank the way I like my blank.
Yes.
Blank. So my first joke, which only women have ever found funny, is, I like my uterus the way I like my calories. Empty. Which I think is a very good joke. And the irony is, now I've been trying to get pregnant unsuccessfully for 2 years, and I think it's that joke's fault. I think 26-year-old me really fucked me over.
Yes. There you go. It lasts. The only thing that bothered me about the rehiring of her, which ethically is the right thing to do for her,
it feels very awkward.
I was mad when I saw people online, like on Facebook boards and stuff, saying the school did the right thing. Good on the school for, like, they're praising the school for doing the right thing. It's like, they didn't, though. They got pressured into doing the right thing, but if it was just up to them, they wouldn't have done it. It's very clear they wouldn't have done it. We saw what they did on their own.
So what we should say is good for the queer community and across the country and around the greater Lisle, Illinois area.
Right. Like, good on the protesters. And you know what? Students wear rainbows every day.
Yeah.
Like, good
I
for
kind of
you.
wish there was like a good old-fashioned protest there, because I've never been onto that campus and it seems very pretty, and I would like to protest there just so I can take a look.
I did not hear any commentary from like the diocese that oversees this school, because you have to think some bishop somewhere is like, oh no, they can't have done this. But also they're not going to like sit there and try to override the very popular Catholic high school that makes them a lot of money.
Right.
So,
And especially on an issue that the Catholic Church has been losing for all of time, but
Yeah.
specifically the last 30 years or so. They are like coming down hard on the wrong side of history, so this can't feel good to them.
Yeah.
This feels a little like beginning of the end to me. But what the fuck do I know? Don't listen to me. What are you listening to this for?
Let me go to a different one. This is another ethical, legal question that I'm going to pose to all of you listening. There's a pastor named Joel Witcher, Whitcher.
That's a great name. I'm gonna write
West
that down.
Olean, New York. I think it's near Buffalo, like Western New York area. But this pastor, Joel Witcher, and his wife Pam, they run a church called the Fresh Fire Worship Center. And if you watch some of the things they've said on all the sermons they've posted online, and there are many of them, you hear things like this. We are expanding God's kingdom beyond these walls into the community, into the governmental positions in our city, into the school systems.
Oh.
You hear the male pastor, Joel, saying abortion is outside the government of God. Gay marriage is outside of the government of God. Muslims, that's outside the government of God.
I've never heard the expression government of God. Have you?
Theocratic, this is the right-wing thing. Like, we are building a government that God supports.
I see. Okay.
But basically, like, yeah, Muslims can't be part of it, is what he said.
Oh, cool.
He said he called out Christians who vote for Democrats. He claimed they support, and I'm quoting, sex change operations for children and forcing Christian churches to marry homosexuals. Okay.
Okay.
He also said, speaking...
All true, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of
list.
Bible verses condemning homosexuality, he said, men committed shameful acts with other men's and received in themselves the due penalty for their error, death. It's a sin. It's the enemy coming out in the light. We're finally seeing what we need to go kill. Tolerance.
Kill?
Well, tolerance is killing the church. I think he meant we have to kill tolerance, the idea of tolerance, but really it came across
you
as...
shouldn't toss
we
around the
should-
word kill when you're in a pulpit. It's just my idea.
And then he just dismissed the idea of mental illness. He
course.
said medication isn't necessary. I'm not quoting, but he said medication is not necessary to treat something like schizophrenia because, quote, we have deliverance. So God's going to cure their mental illness. So, like,
schizophrenia is something that's treatable, but it needs to be treated. Otherwise,
I'm going to throw in a couple more here. He said local schools, public schools, they offer free breakfast and lunch to the students there. And he said that's a problem. Because the spirit of poverty has hit the homes and people don't have the urge to go and work. As if we're giving kids free school meals, which is a good thing. And we're telling people, see, you don't need to go to work. We'll take care of you.
yeah, just
totally not.
just like Jesus wanted.
Yeah. And then he said being a true Christian meant you won't be, quote, susceptible to COVID, which...
I mean...
So he's a COVID denier as well.
I mean,
As
I
if
feel
no
like
real
empirically
Christians have died.
he can probably prove that some Christians have died of it. But
Yeah, but they're
I don't know
not
if
true
that-
Christians.
Oh, sorry, I forgot true Christians. That's my bad.
So all of this is stuff he said in the sermons. That, by the way, none of that would be a news story because there are pastors like that who are just batshit crazy. Here's why this is a story. Guess what Joel Witcher's job is? His day job.
His day job?
The weekend job is pastor of this church.
Is his day job dying of COVID? Is
It
he a
will
cop?
be soon. He's not a cop.
Oh.
He's the principal of Olean Intermediate Middle School, a
Well.
public school in that area. And
Well.
his wife is the school psychologist at an elementary school in that area.
You're kidding me.
So here's the ethical
She's a
question
school
I pose.
psychologist or psychiatrist?
Psychologist.
Holy shit.
What do you do if you know that the principal of a middle school and a psychologist at an elementary school are saying this shit on the side outside of their school lives?
Ooh, looks like another thing Jessica would love to go picket.
Yes. Well, people were demanding the school board take action. not because they hold bigoted Christian beliefs, which they're allowed to do. This is me talking now. They're not saying like, how dare they believe this stuff? They're not saying that. They're saying our kids are not safe with these people in leadership positions at school. We know what they think about LGBTQ kids. We know what they think about Muslim kids.
And I think it's definitely worth noting again that you said this is like upstate New York, right?
Yeah.
So this isn't like Missouri or somewhere in the deep South where like a lot of people would be like, oh, that's fine. Like
conservative area, but still.
But not rural. Anyway, go ahead.
There was another change.org petition for this signed by over 1,500 people that said the student body finds Mr. Witcher's behavior absolutely intolerable. No administrator that governs an extremely diverse student body has the right to publicly discriminate and hate members of his own community and school.
Cool.
And again, there's an open question now of, I mean, you can't fire them for holding what they consider Christian beliefs. That's a legal fight you're going to lose. Can you get rid of them or discipline them or punish them in some way for holding views that disrupts the learning process for a lot of students? Because that is something you could theoretically act upon.
Right.
And that is an outstanding question at this moment, because right now both of them have their jobs. The school board, the superintendent says, obviously, he can't comment on personnel issues. And he said, quote, "We do believe that we can come to an agreement. I think it's going to be a happy ending, actually." I don't know what that means, but that is what he said. I don't know what's going to happen. And
what's the happy ending for this?
Yeah, I don't know what the compromise is going to be that makes everyone happy.
Either he gets fired or children are being supervised by a person who thinks half of them are terrible.
Yeah, or he keeps his job. And here's the other part of the issue that throws a wrench in all this. I have seen no evidence, and no one is offering any evidence, that both of their personal, bigoted, hateful Christian views have seeped into their professional lives. We are not hearing stories of Muslim students who said he acted this way toward me and it was bad.
I forgot
There
the
is
Muslim
no
part.
LGBTQ person saying he's treated me differently because of this stuff. As far as we know, there is no evidence of him acting on his beliefs in a professional setting. So again, I don't have an answer to this. I would pose it to listeners. What do you do in this situation? Or at least what's the right way to think about the situation? Because they haven't done anything yet.
Right.
They do hold these views. They're
Right.
not saying they're taken out of context or anything. We have the audio, we have the video. What do you do with them? I should say a local news channel spoke with a constitutional professor in their area
Oh,
who
interesting.
said it's not clear cut. Of course he has a right to free speech. Of course he has a right to his religious views. If the beliefs invaded the school, you could argue he's putting kids in danger, and then school learning is disrupted. A school board could take action, but it hasn't happened. This is not a clear-cut legal case now. So no one's suing. Nothing's happened to this guy. No discipline, no punishment to the couple. That's where we're at right now.
Isn't it funny that these two stories, the Benet one and this one, the Benet story was fire her immediately, ask questions later. And this one is, well, we can't prove that he says he doesn't like Muslim people, but we certainly can't prove that he said anything mean to them. Like,
except that they shouldn't be allowed in government.
the wife being a psychologist is troublesome
Yeah.
and challenging to me and my brain right now.
Like if I'm a Muslim parent in the district, I don't want my kids seeing that woman.
If you're
So,
you're not Muslim, but you're a brown person, and like if you're
too.
in that district, do you count the guy who thinks Muslims aren't going to be part of our new world order to know that you're? Yeah.
If I'm Christian, I don't want my kids seeing a woman like someone like this, and I
Right.
don't want my kid's principal being someone I know feels this way
Yeah.
about other people. Doesn't matter. So yeah,
Like somebody who's that Islamophobic is not going to be discriminatory about which brown people he picks on eventually. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yes.
Like your atheism is not going to protect you here, Hemet.
You're right. The brown shield rears. Two really quick stories, and we'll wrap this up.
Yep.
Robert Jeffress, he's the pastor of First Baptist Dallas in Texas, MAGA cultist, a Trump supporter forever, was on Fox News all the time because Lou Dobbs had him on all the time, but then Lou Dobbs got shit canned.
Yeah.
Now Jeffress just shows up sporadically. But for all the things Jeffress has done, and he holds every conservative Christian view you would imagine, he's been strangely good about vaccines, which is weird. And actually, speaking with the Associated Press this week, he actually said he and his staff, quote, are neither offering nor encouraging members to seek religious exemptions from the vaccine mandates. He said via email, there is no credible religious argument against the vaccines. Christians who are troubled by the use of a fetal cell line for the testing of the vaccines would also have to abstain from the use of Tylenol, Pepto-Bismol, ibuprofen, and other products that use the same cell line if they are sincere in their objections, which is also what a hospital said. Like last week, we discussed it then.
I'm waiting for him to say, psych!
There's no but. He's saying we're not doing religious exemptions. He's not telling people to get religious exemptions. Yeah, I know. That's my reaction too. Before you praise him, and this is just me talking.
Don't worry, that's not going to happen.
Remember that this is the same guy, though, who last year, like in June, you remember where the pandemic was in June of 2020. It's still going crazy. It still is. Mike Pence came to visit his church for like a 4th of July thing, and he had an in-person, indoor service for thousands of people where masks were merely encouraged, but not mandated. And it was like, dude, you're not helping the situation. Like, you're not the COVID hero. Like, I'm glad you're the broken clock once, twice a day, whatever. Like Pat Robertson on marijuana. You somehow got this right, but there's a whole bunch of shit crazy stuff.
It's just law of large numbers. You're bound to get one of these things right.
Yes, and then I'm going to wrap this up with the happiest story, almost with one twist that is not happy. An Italian priest this week was, he's from Italy, Francesco Spagnesi.
Oh, yeah,
Catholic
he's Italian.
Priest. He was arrested because they discovered that he stole $117,000 from the church's bank account. And I think the church found out he was stealing money, and then they blocked him from accessing the account. And then he started asking the congregation for donations to help the poor, and then he stole that. And all things told, it was $117,000. And what was he using it for?
I was just about to ask that.
Lavish gay sex parties at his house.
Yes!
As if you could have a gay sex party that is not lavish. Now, here's the twist that you're not going to like.
Oh.
Police only found out about all this, not the theft, but what he was doing with it, because they found out his roommate, I don't know if that's innuendo.
In quotes?
Yeah. But his roommate had, quote, imported a liter of the common date rape drug GHB from the Netherlands.
Did you say a liter?
A liter, yes.
Like a liter of cola?
A lot of it, yeah.
A liter is so much roofie.
I'm not hearing if they're taking that for themselves for pleasure to knock themselves out or something, or if they're actually using it on unconsenting people, because I don't know how you have a gay sex orgy with unconsenting people.
Or with unconscious people. It really feels like it would take some of the fun out of it.
You would think. And so police are now interviewing 200 people who they said have attended these parties over the past 2 years.
I have never gotten invited to a sex party.
Much less one with hundreds.
People went to... Oh, dang.
Oh, and by the way, officers found homemade crack pipes from bottles during a raid on the apartment.
Well...
And this is somehow the least scandalous thing I've heard out of the Catholic Church in a very long time. No children were involved. As far as I can tell, there are no victims of the drug. Like, everything here is consensual, but there is a drug in effect here. I don't know if they're using it for other reasons than the bad one. I don't know if you can. I'm sorry. I'm ignorant on this.
Yeah, no.
I don't know enough about the gay sex parties. I'm sorry. There are 2 more things.
Oh, there's more.
Some parishioners are now threatening to file lawsuits. I don't know if they've done it already, but basically, you stole our money, so they're filing lawsuits against this guy. It's fraud. The guy, Spagnesi, says, you can't hold me responsible for this, for all of what happened, because I was in a, quote, cocaine vortex.
Oh, boy,
I need to retitle this episode. I had one ready to go, but
Cocaine Vortex.
And then, by the way...
Let's start a band called Cocaine Vortex.
You are not the first person to say that.
Damn
Sorry.
it.
And then he added, I'm HIV positive, which... If you're going to a gay sex party, I would urge you not to be HIV positive.
Sir, you can't ignore the gay part of the Catholic Church, but listen to the condom part of the Catholic Church.
But he said he's on a certain antiviral medication, which actually makes it literally untransmissible. So that's not the issue here. But I think he said I'm HIV positive to generate sympathy for his plight, which, again, I don't think anyone feels bad for this guy.
Yeah,
But
what am I supposed to feel bad about? This guy's getting fucking laid right and
by
left.
200 people, maybe, theoretically. I don't know how it works. Someone,
looked
email
at-
me how this would work logistically.
I looked at
Also, how do you fit 200 people in an apartment?
Oh,
Or
it's an
even
apartment?
some...
No, it's like probably like 5 at a time. They
Where's
like
he getting that money? Oh,
one in, one out. Apparently, roofies can be used to treat severe insomnia and assist with anesthesia. Whoops, that doesn't sound like the things he wanted to use it for.
have fun with your Google search history.
Well, I did it. Listen, I did. I did Google other uses for roofies, but I did it in incognito mode, so that's not going to hurt me at all. I've been.
But yeah, let's go to the hypocrisy thing here. Like,
Yeah.
why are you a priest is the question. Because you could be doing all this minus the fraud, minus the drugs. There's nothing illegal about the parties you're having. There is an ethical concern because you're a priest.
And apparently drugging people.
And drugging people and stealing money from the worshipers. There's a lot of legal and ethical problems here.
You said
but
this is Italy?
This is Italy.
Oh,
the
Italia.
orgies
My
are
home
the least.
country.
The orgies are the least of the problem here.
These are my
And
people,
yet the
haven't.
line of work that he decided to go into.
Gotta
And by the
Google.
way, if you look at quotes from articles about this, all the people are like, he's a really good priest. We like the sermons.
Listen, I've seen the second season of Fleabag, and my guess is that this gentleman really enjoys the pageantry of the Catholic Church, because that's what, the sexy priest from there. Oh, he didn't have a name.
top
That's why I can't
comment
think
on
of
my
it.
website on an article about this, about the can you not have a lavish gay sex party, is from someone who says, how dare you stereotype us? Some of us have to work for a living, Hammett, and we just throw normal, old, boring gay sex parties. Sorry if that doesn't meet your standards.
Yeah, that's,
I salute you, person who wrote that.
Yeah, that
All
was
right.
really judgmental of you, Hammett, actually.
I apologize to all the gay
wait,
people with their boring sex parties.
Speaking of my home country of Italy, which genuinely is where my family is from, my grandmother, who is 98, is in hospice, and I found this picture. I'm handing Hammett a picture of my grandmother, probably as a teenager, and her
looks
father,
badass.
Philip. Look at my great-grandfather. Does he not look like an Italian stereotype?
Yes.
Like, if you were
Whatever
cast...
you're thinking, yes.
Whatever you're thinking about 1940s Italian immigrant in New York,
Yeah.
that's what my great-grandfather looked like.
Yep. Central
Truly,
casting.
truly my people.
Where do we find you?
You can find me so many places. Thank you for asking. First of all, you can find me on Twitter at Jess Blumke. You can find me on oh my God, I haven't. You can find me on my Etsy shop, Bitches Got Stitched Done. I have been mentioning, like, I've got a little extra time for projects, and I got an email from a woman who in June, I reached out to her and said, hey, you've hit this Patreon level. Can I make you a cross stitch? And she was like, yeah, could you do this? And I was like, yeah, I can't wait. And then my ADD took over and I closed that email and never thought about it again until this sweet poor woman emailed me and was like, hey, I heard you say you have time. Do you think you'll have time for mine? And I was like, wow, I'm truly the worst person. This person is pitching in so we can make to this show. And I was like, instead, I'm going to forget about you because I'm a monster.
We feel bad about it. Is the
We do feel bad about it, and I'm going to get back to you. I also owe a bunch of people stickers.
Yes.
Also, I'm going to be in Portland next month, Portland, Oregon, from the 20th to like the 24th. So if there's interest, I might do a meetup out there. So hit me up if you're interested. I'll post in the Discord and the Facebook group as well. Also, 10/2, October 2nd is next Saturday. There's going to be a reproductive freedom march that I will be attending. That prior Friday when we'll be recording is my birthday, and I assume Hammett will remember and bring me something appropriate for our level
Yeah.
of friendship.
Sure.
He might come to my birthday dinner with me.
I'll make
We've
you
never
a
been in
cross
public
stitch.
together. Okay, that's all.
Find me at Hammett Meta on Twitter, patreon.com/friendly atheist podcast. Invite me to your lavish parties.
Lavish gay sex parties, please.
Like, I'm straight, but whatever. I don't get invited to parties. Just invite me to any of your parties.
Yeah, I invited him to dinner, and he was like,
Hit me up on
Surprise.
Squid Game. Someone talk to me about this. I have no one to talk to because I don't go to parties.
I'm gonna watch it tonight, and I'll
all
text
right.
you. Also, you can leave us a review on iTunes. This latest review is from Sing It Back. 5 stars. Love, love, love. I've been a listener for more... I haven't read this. Hopefully it's good. I've been a listener for more than 2 years, and I didn't realize I'd never left a review before. I'm a huge fan of FA, and I'm always excited to see a new episode pop up in my subscription feed. Hammett and Jessica are a great duo. Funny, informative, insightful. Both are really wonderful, and I love their rapport. Thanks to both of you you for all your hard work and creating fantastic podcasts.
Aw, thank you.
Write something nice. I will read your beautiful words out on this podcast to dozens of people.
We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.